Hey, it's Terry Gorry, and this is the Irish Law and Small Business podcast. Donald Trump faces 4 indictments in, as far as I can recall, 3 different states: New York, Georgia and Florida. He's facing 91 counts of criminal charges. John Gotti was one of the most famous mob bosses, prosecuted and convicted in the United States. John Gotti faced 4 criminal charges. Trump faces 91. But we can learn something from Trump about criminal law. When I started off in my solicitor's practice a number of years ago, I was doing criminal law. I don't do it anymore. I do everything except criminal and road traffic. But back then I was doing criminal law, and I was given advice one time by a district court judge who happened to know somebody who he gave the advice, not to me directly, but to the person for me, because the person asked him for some advice. And this particular judge dealt with the district court prosecutions, criminal prosecutions, public order offences, petty theft, all that stuff that's prosecuted in the district court. And the advice he gave was that most of the prosecutions in the district court are secured, not by the evidence, not by the objective evidence per se, but by admissions, by what the accused person says, either when they're arrested or before they're arrested or after they are arrested. So the lesson was, in relation to criminal law, whatever you say, say nothing. The burden of proving the crime against the accused person rests with the prosecutor, and that burden must be discharged, and the standard of proof is beyond all reasonable doubt. That being the case, then the accused person, by saying nothing, staying stum, is certainly ruling out an admission or a statement that's going to incriminate them. And by and large, there's no obligation on them to make any statement, although there is some crimes, some prosecutions in which if you fail to give a reply or an answer or an alibi, adverse inferences can be drawn. But by and large, the rule is whatever you say, say nothing. Last week, Trump was interviewed by some lady in the United States on a program called Meet the Press. And in it, she was talking to him, asking him about the January 6th insurrection. And obviously he's facing insurrection and conspiracy and sedition charges and so on, arising from that. It was canvassed up to now that Trump was said once or twice that he was following the legal advice. He had legal advisors, he had attorneys, and they were advising him, and he was following the legal advice. Last week in the Meet the Press interview, which I saw at the weekend on YouTube, Trump was asked about this, and the interviewer lobbed him a softball question. She asked him if the decision to do what he did on or around January the 6th and that whole attempt to prevent the ratification of the Joe Biden as president, if that decision was down to the advice he was getting and being given by these whack job lawyers, these whack job attorneys. And Trump, given the size of his ego, given the magnitude of his narcissism, couldn't help himself. He said, no, it was my idea. It was all my idea. It was my decision. In other words, not only did he ignore a possible way out of the criminal conviction, because in order to prove a criminal conviction, to prove a criminal offence, you must prove actus rea and mens rea. Actus rea is that the person committed the offence. Mens rea is that they intended to commit the offence, that they had the mental application or determination to commit the offence. Because remember, somebody could commit what appears to be an offence, but it may be a technical breach or it may be a negligent breach, but they may not have the necessary mens rea to secure a conviction for the prosecutor. But here's Trump given the opportunity to blame his attorneys, to pin the blame on his whack job attorneys. He spurns it because of his narcissism and his ego, and he says, no, it was my decision. So now the prosecutor in Georgia, Fannie Willis or Jack Smith or whoever is prosecuting him, has both actus rea and mens rea, and they will be relying, I believe, very, very heavily on the interviews that Trump has given over the last 12 months or so, and since the prosecution and since the indictments were handed down. Remember, Trump could have said, I can't comment on an ongoing criminal prosecution or a case which is sub judice at the moment. I'm facing charges. I can't comment. I couldn't possibly comment on that. But instead, he couldn't help himself. He couldn't help shooting his mouth off and making an absolute fool of himself again, and basically confessing to the crime, as he did in relation to the documents case. He has committed the crimes in relation to the documents case. How do we know this? Because he's told us. He's told us in an interview, yes, I took the documents, they're my documents, etc., etc. Except the problem is, my dear Donald, that the documents are not yours. They're the documents belonging to the United States of America. So he's shooting his mouth off, but from a legal perspective, from a criminal law perspective, facing criminal charges, the advice is to say nothing. And the advice always or often is not to give evidence either, because you're going to leave hostages to fortune. It will be an absolute shit show to see Trump giving evidence. I can't see him being advised to give evidence, and I doubt he'll give evidence. But having said that, Trump's ego and his narcissism is of such a magnitude that it will be one entertaining show if he insists on giving evidence, because any decent prosecutor cross-examining Trump is going to have a field day. Anyway, I hope you find this video useful. As I say, there is a lesson there for anyone who's prosecuted or being prosecuted with a criminal offence, and you can draw the lesson from the Donald. Hope you find this video useful. Give it a thumbs up down below if you do, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more stuff, more videos about law and business in Ireland and elsewhere, and political comment.